everyone. Welcome to the Happy Hormones podcast. I'm Maya, and today's episode is featuring Riyana Rupani. She is a certified holistic nutritionist, mom of 3 boys, recipe developer, the founder of Everyday Foods, and most importantly, a huge foodie. This episode is jam-packed with nutritional guides, information for PCOS patients, and just women in general. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Maya. Today I'm joined by Riyana, who is a certified holistic nutritionist. I'm super excited about today's conversation, mainly because I just feel I have learned so much from you in the time that I've known you, and so can't wait to share that with the world. But I also just wanted to say that Riyana has actually been a huge help for us at Moom as well. You've actually formulated some of our best-selling products. So that is amazing. So we can maybe get into a little bit about supplement formulation if we have time at the end. Otherwise, we can save it for another episode. But as usual, today we are going to focus a little bit on PCOS and hormones. But I wanted to start off by just asking you a little bit about your background and how you started to become a nutritionist and like what led you to become a nutritionist.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I am very excited about this topic and being here. So, okay, how did I get into nutrition? So I wasn't always, into health and wellness. I actually spent most of my life and my career in finance. I graduated with a finance degree and worked in the corporate world for most of my life. But like most people that are in this industry, it's either because of your own health challenges or someone close to you that have had health challenges. So for me, it was my own health challenges that brought me into this amazing world of health and wellness. It started in my teens. I was diagnosed with PCOS.
So you were diagnosed that young as well?
Yeah, at around 17.
Okay. That is rare. And where were you diagnosed?
In New York.
In New York, okay.
Yeah.
It's very rare, I think, in this part of the world to be diagnosed so young.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the few people that we've spoken to that was diagnosed at 15 as well.
So. Yeah. So, I mean, the way I was even diagnosed, it was very like, oh, well, you probably have PCOS. Let's put you on birth control now and worry about it when you're ready to have kids in however many years.
Yeah.
So, PCOS was, the first part of my health journey, which I didn't realize what a big deal it was until later. And then dealing with other health issues like chronic anxiety in my 20s, things like cystic acne because of my PCOS, which I didn't know at the time. And then later on, having issues with fertility and trying to conceive. And then being diagnosed with not 1, not 2, but 3 now, autoimmune conditions.
Wow.
So it was just kind of like a snowball of, these health issues that came up, and doctors were amazing. They were wonderful. They really helped me kind of know what the problem was and were able to give me medication to help me with the symptoms.
Yeah.
But, no one was really able to tell me why I was having these issues and how I could prevent these things from happening or getting worse.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of just started to dive into, doing my own research, kind of paying attention to what I was eating and whatnot. I'm a foodie. I really love good, delicious food.
Yeah.
So I was not okay with people telling me to just cut out the foods that I love.
Yeah, and I think that is something super unique to you as a nutritionist and we'll get into that in a little bit, but just the idea of nutrition in a really accessible way. And I think that that's something that we'll definitely touch on later, but that's why I loved speaking to you, right? Because you weren't like, you have to change your whole entire life to be able to live a really healthy and happy life.
Yes, exactly. So kind of like owning the process. You know, I always found going to a nutritionist to be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they're going to take away everything I love. So I kind of just, did my research and figured it out a little bit on my own. And the more I changed things with my diet, with my lifestyle, with my mindset, the more things got better for me.
Right.
And at that point I was like, oh my gosh, who can I tell about this? And the more I talked about it, the more women I spoke to about the stuff that was happening to me in my experiences, the more I got the validation from others that, I wasn't alone actually. It was like there was a lot of people out there experiencing the same thing, feeling the same thing, not understanding, in the same way. And so I quit my job.
Okay.
I took a sabbatical from my job, and I went back to school, and I was like, all right, I love this. I love food. I want to study this more holistically and do something with it. And that's kind of how the whole journey began.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. I do have one question about that journey. So I know, did you study nutrition in the US?
I did.
Okay, and now obviously you are based in Singapore, work with
Yes.
a lot of people in Asia. I think two really interesting aspects about the way that you dive into nutrition and the way that you practice it is number one, I've always noticed there's a super intense angle towards women's health. And secondly, I think you've just done such an amazing job of contextualizing it to the Asian diet or to the modern Asian woman, which is obviously what we do here at Moom as
Yeah.
well. So why have that focus on women and how did you decide like, okay, I want to focus on women, but I also want to focus on an Asian diet or consumer or Asian women in general?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe this is also kind of personal to me, but I feel like women in general are kind of not ignored, but they neglect themselves.
Yeah.
I know I do it. We're people pleasers. We're always kind of putting others before ourselves. Um, and we need to give ourselves importance, right?
Yeah.
Because we're filling everyone's cups, and oftentimes we're trying to do it from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So, yeah, making sure that we're in the best health that we can be in is very important. And of course, I mean, I'm a woman,
Yeah.
and um, I want to support other women and help them and hopefully prevent them from going through some of the, experiences
That you went
and
through. Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, trauma that I went through.
Did you have to like go further in your education to really understand how some of the nutrition tips that you are used to giving or the nutrition tips that you have in your, I guess, library of tips and restrictions or guidelines to contextualize that to an Asian culture or diet or I guess people residing here?
A little bit, but I would say honestly, if you just look at like ancestral diets in general, whether you're
Mm,
talking about South Asian, Southeast Asian, you know, there are there are these amazing nuggets of, just nutritional heritage of the
yeah,
way we
yeah.
ate, whether it's like, soups or ending your meal with, the fried
Fried
rice,
rice, right?
or whatnot. Like it's there. It's
Yeah,
just what we've kind of modernized it to be and the way we've kind of changed it.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely piecing, bits and pieces together, but um, yeah, it's
I
all
guess
there.
living in it yourself, you
Yeah,
learn a lot as well.
and again, right? Like I live in Asia. I love the flavors of Asia. I'm Indian. I love those,
Yeah.
flavors and the foods and whatnot. So it just kind of came naturally.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. Before we dive into PCOS, hormonal imbalances, how diet plays a role in all of that, I wanted to ask you one fun-ish question, I guess.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, number one, what are the most common things women come to you for as a nutritionist? And then number two, what is the most surprising issue you've gotten? And I would love to just hear a little bit more about that.
Okay, sure. So, the most common issues I'd probably say are blood sugar dysregulation. I mean, of
Hmm.
course, people don't come to me and say, "Hey, Rihanna, I think my blood sugar is dysregulated," but it's more like energy,
Yeah.
feeling fatigued, feeling hungry all the time,
Yeah.
which then relates, of course, to weight, and then digestive issues.
Yeah.
So, feeling bloated all the time, feeling uncomfortable, those kind of issues. So I'd say that's probably the
Yeah, let's
most
dive
common.
into that after your next tidbit, I guess, which
Yes.
is
So the most the
surprising.
most surprising concern that someone has come to me with is chronic bad breath. And you wouldn't think,
Super interesting.
yeah, you wouldn't think, why am I going to a nutritionist for chronic bad breath? Maybe I should be going to a
A doctor,
dentist.
yeah, or a dentist, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because maybe it's, buildup of bacteria in your mouth or
Yeah.
whatnot. But it's actually really related to your gut
Your gut.
health.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
So that was definitely the most interesting. I'm glad to say we resolved the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
I guess your gut relates to pretty much everything, and
everything.
we'll get into that as well. So, okay, now that we're in this next section of our conversation, I do want to talk a little bit about your journey with PCOS and how nutrition has played a role in just hormonal hormonal imbalances in general, and then obviously would love to get into the blood sugar conversation because I know that's a part of it. But
Yeah.
you've obviously struggled with PCOS, with fertility as well. How has nutrition and diet, and if you could give a few concrete examples of like what changes you may have made to help manage those symptoms as well?
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about my PCOS journey. I didn't even get a period until I was 16. So
Wow,
I'd already
that's
had my,
late.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
already had my sweet 16. That's why I remember it was
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
16th year. And then when I did finally get it, it was just all over the place, right? Like sometimes it would be 2 days, sometimes it would be 6 days, sometimes it would be in 29 days, sometimes it would be in 43 days. Like
That's exactly me.
I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And when I first actually went to doctors, they were like, no, you're fine. But then I also later on in life learned that there is something called even like lean PCOS.
Yes.
So one of the things they, automatically assume with PCOS is that, you're going to be overweight. You're going to have a lot of hair on your face. You're going to have no hair on your head. And
Yeah.
you're going to have a lot of acne.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those symptoms, and if
You don't have
look
PCOS.
like that
Yeah.
person, you don't have
Yeah.
PCOS. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to find a doctor who was actually able to diagnose me and said, no, you have PCOS.
Yeah.
The line of treatment they gave me wasn't ideal, so that I was put on birth control
pill, yeah.
at the age of 17,
Yeah.
and I did not get off of birth control up until I was 28 years old,
Okay.
when I was, about ready to want to try and have children.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when kind of the symptoms and everything else came to a head again
Okay.
for me.
So did you notice any of those, I guess, external symptoms beyond your period irregulation, I guess, while you were taking the pill? Or was it
Yeah.
really coming off it that you noticed all of these other symptoms?
Yeah, no, so I definitely still had symptoms while I was on the pill.
Yeah.
So cystic acne was a huge one for me, and I was put on medication like Accutane, like very strong
Yeah.
medication. I don't know if I can say this, but I mean, it totally ruined my mood and my personality to
Yeah.
the point where my friends called me Accubitch. Sorry, you can cut that out.
No, we don't need to cut that out. Yeah, that's
But I was just mean and nasty,
Yeah.
whether it was because of the medication
interesting.
or because of the PCOS, which does also play a factor
course,
on your
yeah.
on your
On
mood.
mood, yeah.
But then also, like I said, anxiety was another big one.
Yeah.
And I do think that was because of the PCOS. So yeah, I was dealing with a
All
lot
of
of
these symptoms,
a lot of these
right.
symptoms. Yeah, hair fall
Yeah.
also a big amount,
Yeah.
throughout. And then when I got off the pill, the only symptom that actually kind of creeped back up again was noticing that I wasn't ovulating regularly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the periods not being regular again,
yeah.
which they were only regular because of the pill.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
what happened when I got off of it.
Yeah. And then, okay, so you got off the pill, you were like, I need to start to manage my symptoms naturally because I might want to get pregnant. How did you then incorporate nutrition into that? And how did diet actually play a role in helping to manage those symptoms?
Yeah, so it took a while because I always thought I was a healthy woman who had PCOS. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So I thought I ate well.
And you probably did eat well.
I probably ate fairly well.
Yeah.
I probably didn't eat enough. That was probably a big part of it,
Okay, that's super interesting, actually.
Yeah, and then I was exercising. I was, quite active. Loved things like, I didn't love it, but I did it, running.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really quite sure what I had to do. And then it was only when I started to kind of delve into things like chronic inflammation in the body, eating an anti-inflammatory diet, removing some of, maybe at the time, my favorite processed foods, was I able to really start to see a difference. So those were definitely some of the bigger changes I made.
Yeah.
So definitely going more whole food focused.
Yeah.
And really kind of watching the amount of processed foods I was eating.
Let's talk a little bit about okay, so for those people who don't know, we've talked about this in a previous podcast episode, but inflammatory PCOS is one of the types of PCOS that many women can get. It can also happen to women in general. Inflammation in the body can affect a lot of different women, but I think when it comes to a PCOS diet or even a diet when when nutritionists or doctors are like, oh, you have to take this anti-inflammatory diet. What does that even mean? Because I know a lot of people ask that question. What are some foods that you need to take out that maybe cause inflammation? And what are some foods that you need to add in that are anti-inflammatory? And you can get as detailed as you want here, because I think that's what people want. They want to know these really intense, tidbits.
Yeah. So one of the first things anyone should kind of get rid of in regards to inflammatory foods are the oils that you cook with.
Okay.
So things like canola oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oils in general, they are very, very, very high in omega-6 fatty acids.
Okay.
Which are pro-inflammatory.
So those are like the bad fatty acids.
So those are the bad fats, you know, and you'll tend to find them a lot in a lot of our processed foods as well.
Yeah,
our potato chips, our everything that comes in a box, in a bag, simply because they're cheap.
Yeah.
They're cheap to use.
Yeah.
So now omega-6 isn't necessarily bad in general. We do need a bit of it in our body.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing that's happening is that our omega-6 levels are super high. And our omega-3 levels, which are anti-inflammatory, are really low.
Okay.
Now, in general, for our health, they should be on a 1-to-1 ratio. But because of our modern diet, they're not. They're way off. They're 10 to 1, if not, like, for some cases, 100 to 1.
Okay.
So your inflammation, your omega-6 to your omega-3.
It's just the ratio is super off.
Is super off. And one of the best ways you can start to even the playing field is just change up the oils that you're cooking with, your cooking fats. So what are the oils that you
should cook with? Yeah.
So there are 5 that are my go-to.
Okay.
Butter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, ghee, which is clarified butter. Coconut oil, avocado oil, and extra virgin olive oil.
Okay.
So if you have those 5 in your kitchen, you can cook anything.
So you would say pick butter over a
canola
oil
any day.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it tastes good.
Oh my God, it tastes so much better.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like steamed broccoli or like broccoli cooked in
butter. Yeah.
So much better.
Yeah. Okay, so canola oils are one. I want to know your opinion on gluten and dairy.
Okay. Yeah.
Go for it.
So there are a lot of studies, in particular for women with PCOS, that cutting out both dairy and gluten can be beneficial, even in regards to your symptoms.
And are those two things like inflammatory foods?
Yeah, so there is a component of dairy, which they say if you consume too much of it, it can actually increase your androgen production.
Oh.
Yeah, so forget about even the inflammation part of it, where a lot of us can't digest dairy properly, and if you can't digest something properly, it's going to create inflammation. But the fact that this component in it makes you produce more androgens, and we know in general women with PCOS
have already high androgen levels.
Exactly. So you don't want to be adding fuel to that fire.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's a big one on dairy.
On dairy, okay.
Gluten, again, gluten per se is not the problem, but it's our body's ability to process it and digest it.
Yeah.
So, yes, reducing gluten, removing gluten
is always helpful.
Is so helpful. Try it for 30 days, I always say, and see how you feel.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So with PCOS, I know a lot of women do, get side effects when they eat gluten, or they feel extremely bloated, or it's, it just doesn't suit their bodies very well. But I had never had an issue with gluten. And looking back, I think it's just because growing up here, I just rarely ate gluten. And recently I felt like genuinely I cannot digest gluten anymore. And this is in the last 6 months, maybe.
Wow.
Where if I eat any kind of bread, I don't know, and I don't take a debloat right after, I'm extremely bloated and I just feel sluggish the whole rest of the day. And so cutting it out for me has just been a game changer in terms of my energy. And I feel like this has been a symptom that I've gotten, that's like maybe a PCOS symptom or a digestive health symptom that I've gotten later in life.
Yeah.
And I think one thing people don't really understand about PCOS is that your symptoms can change. And it isn't this disease that has a very strict set of symptoms, right? It's a range of symptoms. And so that's why anti-inflammatory foods are really good. But are there other dietary guidelines you can follow as women with either hormonal imbalances like endometriosis as well, but with PCOS that you usually suggest for women?
Yes. So just to even quickly touch on that
Yeah.
topic of, your PCOS symptoms changing and whatnot, like women, even if you don't have
Yeah.
PCOS,
Yeah.
because of our hormonal changes,
Yeah.
whether it's puberty, getting pregnant, post-pregnancy,
Yeah.
perimenopause, menopause, your hormones are constantly shifting.
Yes,
And
true.
so your body and what you can handle, what you can't handle, the symptoms you might be experiencing is constantly shifting.
Yeah.
So many women come to me and they're like, Riyana, I'm doing everything I was always doing and it's not working.
Yeah.
Because your body's changing.
Yeah.
So this whole, perspective of listening to your body and tweaking things,
It's really important.
it's very important.
We talked about in another conversation, okay, like what the hell does listening to your body actually mean? Because, okay, everyone says that, but like, how do you get in tune with these things? But before we go into that conversation, I do want to know, like, if someone comes to you with PCOS, they're like, hey, Riyana, I have PCOS, these are my symptoms. What sorts of food should I be eating? Yes, okay, we know now we should avoid inflammatory foods.
Yes.
What are other sorts of foods we should avoid? And then, again, what are things we should be adding in?
Yeah, so other foods that we definitely want to avoid or reduce are ones that are high in sugar or refined carbohydrates because they are going to spike your blood sugar. And we know there is a very direct relationship between PCOS and your blood sugar and, diabetes, metabolic syndrome.
Let's actually go through that a little bit.
Yeah.
What is blood sugar? Okay. What are the symptoms you might get from blood sugar? And then go into how food affects that. Because I honestly think not a lot of people even really understand what blood sugar is.
Okay, so basically your metabolism, the way you process foods that you eat, most foods release glucose into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what happens is your body then releases insulin in order to absorb that glucose and store whatever you're not using. Okay, and it gets stored in 3 places. It gets stored in either, and this is a very simplified version, your liver. When your liver's full, it stores it in your muscles. When your muscle's full, it starts to create fat, adipose tissue, in order to store your glucose. But now, if you're filling your diet with constant refined carbohydrates, constant sugars, things that are filled with sugars or things that can very easily be turned into sugar by your body, then your blood sugar is constantly spiking. And your body is constantly having to release insulin. And what happens is after years and years and years of this, too much sugar coming into my system, insulin coming out, it starts to deteriorate, right? Just like it's like if you overuse a computer or anything, right? It's going to start to break down. And that's what happens. So then you have this problem of high blood sugar or pre-diabetes, or then what becomes diabetes, which also then creates inflammation in your body. So it's all very related.
And we already know that women with PCOS are just already have a higher likelihood of high blood sugar and insulin resistance. So it is really important for women with PCOS to sort of look at this piece of blood sugar. So I guess now going into the nutrition piece, how does nutrition play a role in blood sugar? Obviously the sugar part.
Yes.
But yeah, let's elaborate on that.
So definitely, reducing the amount of sugars or foods that easily turn into sugars into your body. But also, doing things like combining your foods in the right way. So if you are having something that's sugary or that has a refined carbohydrates, let's say like a piece of toast, that you're adding good protein and good fats in order to slow down the absorption of that sugar from that piece of bread. So if you ate the bread, it would quickly turn into sugar. But if you have fat, if you have some good fats, like let's say avocado, and you've got some protein, let's say like an egg on there, those 2 things are going to buffer the blood sugar conversion. So it's going to be slower. So your blood sugar now won't spike like this. It'll go up, but it'll go up a lot more gradually. And it'll give your body enough time to respond and bring it down to that nice level. So I always say we want to get off a blood sugar roller coaster where we're spiking and dropping and spiking and dropping, and we want to go onto this nice kind of rolling hill.
I think that's a huge takeaway for everyone, right? It's not about eliminating a piece of toast from your diet. It's about adding these buffers in. Like healthy fats, like protein, like MetaBoost, which is a supplement that actually Riyana helped create with us, which is super interesting, right? So maybe just because we're talking about it right now, why do things like the ingredients in MetaBoost actually help curb blood sugar, right? Like, we don't have to get into every single ingredient, but things like mulberry leaf, green coffee bean extract, why are those things actually helping you with your blood sugar? Or like an apple cider vinegar, right? Like,
Yeah.
is that something you take? Do these things act like a buffer as well?
They do, and they help your body in regards to the way it's metabolizing the sugar.
Okay.
So they just kind of give your body that extra little boost. And again, it's very different for each person, you know. Some people can process sugars very well, but for those of us who can't, having these natural extracts and herbs, even things like cinnamon, right?
Yes.
Are amazing. Turmeric as well from an inflammation standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Including these herbs and vitamins into your system just helps your body metabolize the sugars in a better way.
Okay, and one other question I wanted to ask you, I guess, to end this chapter is, are there any other like little tips or tricks from a nutrition standpoint you have for women with either hormonal imbalances or PCOS?
Yeah. So for PCOS in particular, a lot of people don't know this, but actually having something as simple as spearmint tea, so not peppermint tea,
Okay.
but actual spearmint tea. There are tons of studies out there that show that it actually lowers androgen levels.
And do you buy this tea in a tea bag?
Yeah, you can get it in a tea bag. You can get it loose as well, a little bit harder to find.
Okay.
But yeah, so just a lovely spearmint tea can be really helpful.
And that's so easy to incorporate into your everyday.
Do it iced, do it hot.
Okay, great. I did want to ask, because I know you have so much knowledge on supplements, and this isn't just to talk about Moom, but I do want to ask, when it comes to women's health generally, and then later on we can talk more specifically PCOS, what are some top supplements you think women should be adding in? And also, like, do you even think women should be taking supplements?
Yeah. So to answer the second part first, do I think women should be taking supplements? Yes.
Okay.
Do I think women should be just taking a blanket, like random, variety of supplements? No. I definitely think supplements need to be targeted.
Yeah.
Based on a person. I get it all the time. There are people who are taking just multivitamins just for the sake of it, and I always tell them, you're
What's
probably
the
just
point?
peeing it out,
Yeah.
to be honest, if you don't even know why you're taking it.
Yeah.
So making sure you're taking supplements that are targeted is really important. So now for women with PCOS in particular, inositol is the Hail Mary.
Yes.
For my PCOS sisters out there. And of course, making sure, like the Moom inositol, that it's in the right ratio, D-chiro to IO.
I was talking to Dr. Sharon about inositol as this magic supplement and just how it's changed my life specifically. Like, I literally have never had a regular period in my life before until taking inositol, and it's just like, I know there's no magic pill, but like this powder is pretty magical to me, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you as well. So I was not taking anything for PCOS for a while because I thought I had it managed under, my diet and lifestyle and whatnot. But then recently my periods started to get a bit longer in length between my periods. So where it was 28 days, it started to become 31, 32 days. And I'm like, what is going on? Again, I'm in my mid 40s. I didn't know if it was
menopause, perimenopause,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I started to take inositol again.
Happy hormones.
Yes. And boom.
Yeah.
Literally within 30 days, so my next cycle, it was fine. It was back on track.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So even for women who are trying to conceive, it's great for ovulation, for egg quality. So a lot of my women who don't necessarily have PCOS but are dealing with fertility,
that's amazing.
I strongly recommend inositol for women who are in perimenopause and menopause as well. Again, it's amazing for just balancing blood sugar, which again, as we age, we just become less and less insulin sensitive. So it's great for that, and it's great for sleep.
Yes. That's actually a new part of inositol. Like, a lot of recent studies have shown that it's great for sleep, which is a whole nother topic, but super interesting as well.
I was going to say, Moom should do an updated, you know how they have the Sleepy Girl mocktail?
Yes.
With the cherry and the magnesium? You should do it
update
with
Okay, so for those of you out there, Sleepy Girl mocktail,
and it's delicious. Why wouldn't you want to have it?
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so obviously inositol is a big one.
Obviously, inositol. Magnesium
Okay.
is another one.
And would you sort of also call magnesium this like holy grail supplement for women
Yeah,
in general?
I would.
Why?
So one of the first things that gets depleted when we live with stress
Yeah.
is magnesium. And I
Yeah.
don't care who you are, where you live,
Yeah.
the lifestyle, the day and age that we live in today is just full of
Stress.
stressors.
Yeah.
So magnesium, and there are, again, lots of studies out there that show women in general are, for the most part, magnesium deficient.
Right.
And PCOS, women with PCOS are 20 times more.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what it is about the relationship between PCOS and having this
Yeah.
magnesium deficiency. Maybe it is the whole adrenal connection to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so taking
Wow.
magnesium,
I didn't know that actually.
yeah, can be
A
incredible.
game changer.
Yes, yes. And you'll even see, right? A lot of women who do have PCOS, they do have some level of, adrenal fatigue,
Yes.
maybe a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
So magnesium is one of those wonderful supplements that just helps you stay calm,
Yeah.
right? And for me personally, like I take it on a regular as
Basis,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, just for sleep, mood, to help with, muscle fatigue if you are doing,
Yeah,
strength
workouts,
training
yeah.
and whatnot. So that's a big one.
So inositol, magnesium, any others you would recommend?
Omega-3.
Okay, omega.
So having a good
And that's to
omega-3.
balance that levels. I really like that visual. I know it's a silly little visual, but I think it's really
Yeah.
easy to understand. And it's not just about, okay, reducing,
But bringing this
but bringing
up.
this up as well. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So making sure it's got both EPA and DHA,
Yeah.
which Moom omega-3
The omega-3
does
have.
have, because so the DHA part of omega-3 is really good for brain health, but the
Mhm.
EPA is actually that anti-inflammatory component.
Right.
So you want to make sure it's got
Right.
both of those
Yeah.
in there. And then the last one I would probably say is a good zinc. So zinc is really good in digestion overall, gut health, but also in blood sugar management.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that either.
Yeah.
Okay, learned a lot today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Before we end the session for today, I did want to ask you if you could leave women with PCOS one piece of advice, and this could also be women with endometriosis. I don't want to leave those people out. What would you say to them?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a hard question.
That is a hard question. There's so many things I want to tell you, women. First and foremost is please don't do anything extreme. When we're dealing with these conditions, especially, hormonal conditions, our bodies are really sensitive.
Yeah.
And sometimes we might think doing something extreme, whether it is a diet perspective or, a workout or lifestyle perspective, you might think, oh, if I go hard, it's going to help.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people go keto, for example.
Right.
Cut out all the carbs. And that's not what you want to do. You actually need to be really gentle with your body. So again, this does go back to listening to your body.
Yeah.
So if you are craving something carby, eat it, but eat it in the right way and eat the right type of carb.
Yeah.
For example, if you are feeling fatigued and tired and not going to, you don't want to go to the gym, don't. Maybe go for a light walk, stretch at home, and then call it a day.
Yeah.
And kind of doing these things and bring your, adrenals, giving your adrenals some love by not overstressing your body, you'll actually see that your body will respond a lot better.
Yeah,
than
it's
you
like
just pushing
creating
too
those
hard.
little habits in your life to then, eventually you might be very different to where you began. But I think if you just go 360, 180 all of a sudden one day, it's not going to stick with you either.
Yeah. Less is more, right? And this is even something I practice with my clients. Make one change. Make it a habit. Once you've gotten that under your belt and you're good with it, then start the next. So right now we've talked about
great piece of advice.
Yeah, we've talked about diet. We've talked about supplements.
Yeah.
I could have talked about like exercise and lifestyle and whatever.
There's
And you might
so
be like,
much.
oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things now.
Yeah.
No, focus on one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's getting the right supplements in, or
Yeah.
your Moom pack, and make sure it's got everything in there. Make it a daily routine and a daily habit. Once you've got that, then maybe go into your pantry and start cleaning out a little bit, or go and replace your cooking oils.
Yeah.
So one at a time.
And the last thing I did want to share is Riyana does have a line of amazing products. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about Everyday, what you do there, and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. So, Everyday Foods is a brand of all clean, all natural, better for you products. We started with a line of chili sauces. Again, I love my food. I love my big flavors. So they're all made with extra virgin olive oil, no preservatives, no additives, nothing that's going to make you feel terrible. And then from there, we kind of expanded and went into things like, we do granolas, we do grain-free crackers, we have a whole gluten-free bread range. We have low sugar sweet spreads like a chocolate hazelnut and a kaya. So yeah, that's a little bit about the range, and we're constantly,
I myself am a huge fan of the gluten-free range because I genuinely think it tastes not gluten-free. Like it's
yeah,
actually bread or wraps or
yeah,
naan even. Like it's really cool to be able to have that. But
yeah.
where can people find Everyday?
So we are available online at everydayfoods.com, but you can also find us on Redmart. You can find us at Little Farms, on Ryan's, if you're in the US, on
Amazon.
Amazon.
Kira in Malaysia, for those of
Yes,
you in
just
KL,
just
just launched.
started. Yeah, this week, and we'll be in Dubai soon as well too.
Yeah.
So
And everyone can find Riyana at Healthyish and Happy on her own Instagram. She has all the tidbits she just shared there as well. But thank you so much for being on this.
thank you.